Hey guys, I'm Erik Voss, and I've been rewatching one of my favorite superhero movies of 2016, Deadpool. And here at New Rockstars, we've been talking about our favorite anti-hero movies all this month. Kyle just made a video about Suicide Squad that you should definitely check out, but me, I love Deadpool, and based on how much you guys are still tweeting us about this movie, so do you. And yeah, I know it's been a while since it came out, and by now a lot of you have probably caught all the obvious references, but I realized that there's actually a lot more to this movie than people really covered. When you compare the final cut to the early drafts of the script, listen to the commentaries, look at the deleted scenes, and watch this movie over and over as endlessly as I have, some really cool missable details start to emerge. So I'm gonna break all of those down, skipping over some of the obvious stuff that you probably already caught. And we're gonna see exactly how many layers Deadpool has. So let's get started. So the movie's opening title sequence is just fantastic. It's full of little winks, like the actors' names being replaced with the stereotypical roles that they play, and then the coffee cup with Rob L, that's for Rob Liefeld, the co-creator of the Deadpool comics, and of course the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern photo, yada yada yada. But I want to talk about the visual design of this scene. So the writers said that this sequence of characters frozen in mid-action as the camera swoops around them, that is an homage to Adam Burke's award-winning carousel ad for Philips. Check out, it has some of the same awesome visuals. And notice how the first shot we see of Deadpool, it's his crotch. Like, the first impression we get of Deadpool is him teabagging the audience. That is a bold promise for the irreverent humor that this movie's gonna have. And I gotta say, I have never been so thrilled to be teabagged before. All right, moving on. Now check out this shot of Deadpool in his suit riding a taxi. That's a funny visual that grounds a superhero immediately. It's kind of like that scene at the beginning of Spider-Man 2 when Peter has to ride a crappy moped and take the elevator. It's really fun to force superheroes to take mundane forms of transportation. And of course, Deadpool and Spider-Man actually have a ton of connections in the Marvel comics, so it's really cool to see the movie use these references to bring them together. In fact, in an early draft of the script, Deadpool's mask was supposed to be a store-bought Spider-Man mask turned inside out. And that's interesting because in the early days development of Deadpool, he was conceived as the darker, amoral flip side to the jokey hero that Spider-Man was to the Marvel Universe. And real quick, I just want to point this out because I think this is a really fascinating detail. Dopinder, the taxi driver, was named after a kid Ryan Reynolds went to school with who got struck by lightning. And yeah, that's super tragic, but come on, getting struck by lightning and getting a Deadpool character named after you, that's a much cooler legacy than being the kid who threw up on himself. Also, you may have noticed Deadpool's obsession with Christmas in this movie.
And I'm after someone on my naughty list.
That's because the original script had a very different storyline that involved Francis going to prison and getting released on Christmas Day. That's the day Deadpool counts down to get his revenge. I'll talk more later about how and why that was changed. Moving on to this introduction of Francis, aka Ajax. Now, the final cut of the movie established him as the arms dealer and head of Weapon X Labs, even though originally he was supposed to be more of a supporting villain. But there's another reason why this scene was changed. Check out this deleted scene that the final version replaced. This is Francis getting released from prison, and not just any prison, that's the Raft. Now, the Raft is a prison for superhumans from the Marvel comics. But remember, the MCU ended up showing the Raft in Captain America Civil War. And since Deadpool is technically part of a movie universe that's separate from the MCU, Marvel probably instructed them to hold off showing this alternate version of a Marvel property. We actually go into this in other videos, why certain things and characters from comics can't appear together in the movies, like why the Fantastic Four couldn't be in the Civil War in the movies, even though they're in it in the comics. It's because Fox owns them, and they prefer to put them in really bad movies. Okay, let's move on to this overpass freeway sequence, which is a recreation of that test footage that Ryan Reynolds leaked to help get the movie made. Director Tim Miller said that they didn't just reuse the same footage. Both scenes were made separately from a source script, and then the final cut, since they had more money now, could get closer to what the writers wanted. So, for example, check out how Holla Batgirl was updated to Salt and Peppa's Shoot.
I wanna shoot, baby. Shoot, shoot, baby.
Shoot came out in the year 1993, which is the same year Deadpool solo series debuted, making it more of a contemporary reference. Then we see more of this great action sequence, and I just want to point out that this one freeway scene provides the entire narrative backbone of this movie. The first 40 minutes stays right here, with flashbacks and cutaways breaking it up. Now, there's a few reasons for that. For one, this movie had a budget of only $58 million. That is pocket change compared to the $250 million that Civil War and Batman vs. Superman got. They were also only allotted a shooting schedule of 48 days. That's about a month shorter than most big action movies get to shoot. So keeping this one set as the location for most of the movie makes budgetary sense. But it also gives the movie an interesting pace and story structure unlike any we've seen in a superhero movie before. So when you think about origin stories like Iron Man, Captain America, Batman Begins, Spider-Man, Spider-Man again, probably Spider-Man a third time, they all rely on similar story beats that occur in the same order. Sympathetic hero undergoes transformation, makes a bold entrance, and spinning newspapers sweep the nation. But Deadpool is not chronological. It starts in the action in this great freeway sequence like the test footage promised it would be, and then it lets his origin gradually unfold via flashback. So we don't spend half the movie waiting for Wade Wilson to finally become Deadpool. The movie balances out the fun Deadpool action that we want to see with the grounded Wade Wilson character beats that we need in order to care about the story. Now I should say that Suicide Squad actually tried to use this same device to retroactively endow their anti-heroes with humanity, but I don't think it worked out quite as well, and I'll get to why later. Anyway, before I move on, yes, there were a ton of Easter eggs here. All the street signs referencing names like Peter Parker and Fabian Nicieza, and all the visual effects artists who worked on the movie. And then of course, the quick clip of the Adam West Batman theme music on the radio.
This man.
But one of my favorite jokes was actually cut from the movie. So check out when Deadpool burns this guy's forehead with a cigarette lighter. Originally, the joke was gonna be, "Loved your work in Daredevil," referencing Bullseye, who has a similar scar on his forehead. The writers decided to cut it because they thought it was a little too inside baseball for general audiences, but not too inside for us. Moving on to this cutaway scene at the X-Men mansion. Originally, this scene wasn't in the movie, but Tim Miller went and shot it and then added it to the final cut because test audiences weren't familiar enough with Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead to know that they're part of the good guys. I'll talk more about Colossus later, but Negasonic originally wasn't in the script either. The writers added her to be a younger foil to Colossus and Deadpool. They actually got a list of approved obscure heroes from Marvel, and they just loved the name Negasonic Teenage Warhead so much that they decided to use her in the movie, and they had to get special permission to change her powers though. Deadpool's 12-shot countdown is one of my favorite parts of this movie. It's just so great. And other than that final Francis shot of the movie, it's the only time that Deadpool uses a gun as his primary weapon. The writers of the movie said that they like Deadpool as a hero who uses katanas in his fists, so if there is a shootout, they wanted to make it count. Literally count, limiting Deadpool to a precise number of bullets. Now, there's some amazing shot composition here that I gotta point out. First, check out this shot of the bullet hole through Deadpool's arm. This is the same angle from a scene in Shaun of the Dead, and it's such a great way to show that putting holes in this person does not kill them. Also, notice how Deadpool's katanas form an X through the thug's body. So Deadpool is so resistant to joining the X-Men, he actually makes fun of the whole idea of the X-Men over and over again through the movie.
The day I decide to become a crime-fighting swizzler who rooms with a bunch of other little whiners at the Neverland Mansion, on that day, I'll send your shiny happy ass a friend request.
Yet still, he keeps being surrounded by this subliminal imagery that's like calling him to join the X-Men and be a hero more than an anti-hero. Now, before I get to the pizza delivery scene, check out this fun edit that gets us there. We jump cut from a close-up of Deadpool's ass to this bedazzled jean ass of this other guy. Now, the writers joked that this was their ass-to-ass transition, which is a super deep cut to the movie Requiem for a Dream.
So what are we gonna do now?
Ass to ass.
I also like that this movie is making fun of the weird obsession with butts that past superhero movies have had.
He has those tights and that tight little
Dresses like a spider.
I don't get what the big deal is. Moving on. Okay, so obviously this pizza scene is taken directly out of the comics, issue number 10 from the 2008 Deadpool run. And a lot of you spotted the famous Feige's pizza box, referencing Marvel head Kevin Feige. Also, the B. Arthur shirt that Wade is wearing. But it's this next scene in the skate park that I want to point out. Notice how Wade refuses to beat up the other girl's stepdad just because she doesn't like him. And then later, he tells Weasel to give the girl back her money. So this flashback isn't just depicting Wade as a wisecracking merc with a mouth, it's also making him out to be a good guy with a heart. So let's quickly point out a few things about this Sister Margaret's bar. Rob Liefeld makes a quick cameo.
Liefeld.
Hey, wait.
And then Wade and Weasel reference a line from X-Men Origins.
All I ever wanted was to travel to far-off, exotic places, meet new and exciting people. and then kill them. I was traveling to exotic places, meeting new and exciting people, and then
killing them. Yeah, I've seen your Instagram.
Which is one of the many nods to the awful depiction of Deadpool that the studio made Ryan Reynolds do. And if you want to know the names of everyone in the death pool on the blackboard, you can pause and read them now. Shockingly, all of these people are still alive, but there was one running gag in the original script that was cut because the person did die. Amy Winehouse. Now, several cutaways throughout the film were supposed to show Winehouse very close to death, but miraculously avoiding it, until finally, in the final shot of the movie, she was supposed to get run over by a London double-decker bus. Yeah, that probably would have come off as a little too dark a few years after she died of alcohol poisoning. Now let's move on to
Vanessa.
The way the character Vanessa was adapted from the comics, and even from the early draft of the script, is a big part of what makes this movie so good. Of course, in the comics, Vanessa is just a prostitute that Wade hooks up with, who later becomes the shape-shifting superhero Copycat. Now, the studio and the creative team hasn't acknowledged yes or no on whether the movie version of Vanessa will become Copycat in the sequels, but this version of Vanessa is definitely a more fleshed out character. Genre-wise, this movie is mainly a love story. Other superhero movies have had love stories as subplots, but Deadpool puts it front and center, and Vanessa is the character that drives all of that. This flirty, one-upping moment between Wade and Vanessa is just great writing.
rough childhood.
Rougher than yours. Daddy left before I was born.
Daddy left before I was conceived.
Ever had a cigarette put out on your skin?
Where else do you put one out?
It's actually the part of the script that they used to audition actresses to play the role of Vanessa. Tim Miller said that he saw Olivia Munn read for the part and she was the frontrunner until she backed out to play Psylocke in X-Men Apocalypse. Hopefully, at least the pay was better. And I want to point out that this whole premise is actually a reference to the classic Monty Python sketch called The Four Yorkshiremen. Take a look.
House? Well, when I say house, it was just a hole in the ground covered by a sheet of tarpaulin, but it was a house to us. We were evicted from our hole in the ground. We had to go and live in a lake.
Now check out this transition to Wade and Vanessa in the arcade. At first, the shot is horizontal, like they're having sex. But no, the next shot reveals that they're just on a sweet date. That's an inside joke to the fact that originally the script was gonna jump from the bar to them screwing, but the writers wanted the scene to show Wade and Vanessa developing as a couple, rather than just the purely transactional relationship that they had in the comics. Moving on to this amazingly raunchy calendar girl montage, which the writers and the directors said was the hardest sequence to pull off. They really wanted it to be about the jokes
Happy Lent.
and not about the porny visuals. And the writers said that this is probably the first superhero movie to show someone getting pegged.
No.
And I tried to fact check that, but there's a lot of things I can't unsee now. They actually ended up having to cut this entire sequence from the film for Chinese audiences because Chinese censor boards kept giving them notes and they're like, you know what? This isn't gonna make sense. We just have to take it out. And one of the ideas that they ended up not using was to have Easter sex with Wade in a yellow chicken costume a chocolate egg on Vanessa's stomach, which would be hilarious, but yeah, probably a little too extreme. Also, just in case you didn't catch this during the Lent abstinence beat, check out what book Wade is reading. It's Mario Lopez's memoir. That's a reference to the April Fool's joke that Deadpool did with Mario Lopez, revealing that the movie would be R-rated. But again, this story needs us to care about Wade and Vanessa's relationship. So notice how quickly it progresses. They celebrate the holidays together, Wade proposes, and then they literally go through sickness and health together. And notice how that ring pop proposal, it seemed really endearing and touching, right? That's because one of the writers took that move directly from his brother who proposed to his girlfriend the same way. So you can see the writers are pulling out all the stops to give this love story so much heart. Now, when Wade gets his cancer diagnosis, the original script went a slightly different direction than the final cut does, but I'll get to that later. Okay, moving back to the freeway, check out this shot when Deadpool pulls the katanas back out of the thug. The camera pans down on him as he holds the body up. Tim Miller said that he used the same shot as before when the camera panned up, and he just reversed it in post. Now, the fight between Deadpool and Francis was originally going to be way more elaborate in an early draft of the script. Like there was going to be a high-speed chase scene like from Speed or The Matrix Reloaded, with the two of them smashing through the rooms of a house that's being transported on the back of a truck. It was gonna end with Francis using a child as a human shield and then Deadpool just like calling his bluff by doing the same. And yes, this would have been awesome to see, but I get it, limited budget. And honestly, just seeing Deadpool beat the crap out of Francis is satisfying in its own way. Now, notice how Deadpool lifts his mask to reveal his face to Francis.
How about now?
Obviously, that line is a reference to the 2004 comic where Deadpool says he looks like Ryan Reynolds crossed with a Shar-Pei. Reynolds has actually revealed that he's been involved with bringing Deadpool to the movies since 2004. He's also said that the humor of Deadpool has subconsciously inspired all of his acting since then, starting with Blade Trinity.
You know, I look back at it and I think, wow, I was kind of in a weird way playing Wade Wilson in that movie, and I didn't know it.
Someone else did, though. That's who sent me the comic book guy, and who said, you're Deadpool. And I read him, and I fell in love with it. And that was in 2004 when that panel came out in the Deadpool comic that said, asking Deadpool what he looks like. And he said, I'm a cross between Ryan Reynolds and a Sharpay. That was sort of kismet, I thought.
So if you've loved Ryan Reynolds' career for the past decade, we kind of have Deadpool to thank, since each of Ryan Reynolds' characters were channeling him in some way. Now, the jump cut out of this scene is my favorite edit of the movie. It goes from Deadpool sideways in midair after getting thrown by Colossus to the action figure of the shitty X-Men Origins Deadpool. When I saw the movie, this got the biggest laugh in the theater. It also got the biggest, why is everyone laughing? So the timing and the clever parallelism in all these edits is a big reason why flashbacks work in Deadpool so much better than in a movie like Suicide Squad. So with Deadpool, a lot of thought clearly went into this cut, and the memory was triggered by the character's emotional state in the present day.
This went sideways in the most colossal way.
So Deadpool was just about to finally get the satisfaction he wanted, revenge against Francis, but it was snatched away from him. So it makes sense that we see a parallel moment in Wade's past, so close to finally having a happy future with Vanessa, but cancer cruelly took it away from him. I think Suicide Squad tried to do that, but too often the flashbacks just came in at random times, and I don't even know if the actor was thinking about the memory when the audience saw it. It's like the editor just kind of threw it in after the fact. Now, if you like Suicide Squad and you think I'm being too hard on it, you really should check out Kyle's video where he brings up a lot of solid points defending the movie and its weird Joker dialogue.
You are my guests to this handsome hunka.
And I know Deadpool and Suicide Squad are very different movies with very different goals, but it kind of makes sense to compare them just because they're both stories about anti-heroes showing an edgier but also more humorous side to their movie universes. And if you love the not so good guys of the superhero world, or just really anything at all about the superhero world, you really should check out Loot Crate. Loot Crate is a monthly subscription box service that delivers a crate full of awesome stuff right to you for less than $20 a month. Just go to lootcrate.com/rockstars. Each month has a theme, and this month's theme is, you guessed it, anti-hero. It's supposed to have a lot of awesome Deadpool stuff too, so let's take a look. Following month's box, you have to sign up by the 19th of every month at 9 p.m. Pacific. If you use our code, ROCKSTARS, you get 10% off. October's box's theme is speed, and it's got a bunch of stuff from like The Flash and Arrow, all kinds of great stuff in it. And if you sign up for Loot Crate right now, you'll be eligible for a special giveaway from new Rockstars. This box that I just opened, all you have to do is sign up at lootcrate.com/rockstars and tweet us your favorite Easter egg in Deadpool. Seriously guys, I am a huge fan of Loot Crate. They do such great stuff for YouTubers like us, so you really should sign up. Okay, so let's get back to Deadpool. We're back in this scene in Wade's apartment, and there's all kinds of little references if you're paying attention. Specifically, for me, I liked the Broadway references in this scene with Wade's purse with Bernadette Peters on it. She's a Broadway star, and that actually comes back later in the movie. I also like the subtle joke of Wade wearing a Rent shirt. So just like Wade, a lot of the characters in the musical Rent are slowly dying of a terminal illness.
Everyone has AIDS.
Okay, so moving on to this scene in the bar, and check out these pamphlets for alternate cancer treatments.
I'm sure they're all FDA approved.
Places like China and Mexico.
Chechnya. Isn't that where you go to get cancer?
So in an early draft of the script, we actually saw Wade travel around the world trying to treat himself, like covering himself with snake guts in India, breathing herbal smoke in China, and experimental surgery in Mexico. And actually, a deleted scene shows that last one.
Next, siguiente.
With Wade killing a corrupt Guadalajara surgeon for tricking cancer patients. This was actually where Wade was originally going to abandon Vanessa.
Wade!
And I'll explain why that was changed in a second. But real quick though, I want to talk about this creepy Weapon X recruiter guy. So the movie compares him to Agent Smith from the Matrix movies, but check out that phone number on his card, 555-0199. Now, if you've seen the movie American Beauty, Kevin Spacey's character has the same number. And it's interesting how both characters are accused of being a little creepy. Spacey's character fantasizes about sleeping with an underage girl, and the recruiter for just having a general pedophile vibe, I guess.
How can I help you? Besides
luring children into a panel van.
So let's look at this sad scene in the apartment with Wade deciding to leave Vanessa. Tim Miller chose to make this the heartfelt turning point, instead of the deleted scene with the doctor in Guadalajara. Now, why did he do that? It's because Miller didn't want it to seem like Wade was running away from a crime and then turning to Weapon X. Instead, Wade's doing it for Vanessa. And this sincere moment in the apartment illustrates that so much better. Okay, so moving on back to the freeway with Colossus and Negasonic joining the mix. This scene has so much meta commentary on superhero movies, and there's really nothing subtle about it.
Let's pro-con this superhero thing. Pro. Lucrative film deals, both origin stories and larger ensemble team movies.
Today I decided to become a crime-fighting swizzler who rooms with a bunch of other little whiners at the Neverland mansion of some creepy, old, bald, Heaven's Gate-looking mother.
Let us go talk to the professor.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
There's even an extended deleted scene where Deadpool goes on a longer rant about getting suckered into playing Green Lantern.
Kid with $1,000 Armani shows up and says, hey, you want to be a superhero? We don't have a script yet, but we promise it's going to be awesome. But what he doesn't say is that the release date is totally unmakeable, and the super suit is animated. Like a Saturday morning cartoon. And we all know the sad end of that one, don't we?
Now, if you look closely at that deleted footage, you saw a pre-CGI version of Colossus. So I just want to point out that it took 5 actors to bring Colossus to life. 1, a body double for motion capture in the studio. 2, Andre Tricato, the guy we actually saw in the footage. He was the guy who did the physical movement on set. He's 6'9", and he wore 8-inch stilts and a headpiece to appear taller. Then 3, they used a model for Colossus's facial structure. The crew actually wanted to use the NFL player Rob Gronkowski for this, but it ended up not coming together. Then 4, Greg LaSalle, the actor who created the facial expressions for Colossus. And then finally 5, Stepan Kapetchik, might be saying that wrong. He's the actor who did the Russian accent voiceover.
No other character that can be such as good as contrast to Deadpool's character.
Now, originally they were gonna have Daniel Cudmore reprise the part from X2 and The Last Stand, but he backed out when they told him that they were gonna have to dub over his not tough enough voice.
I can help you. Help them.
Now, there are obviously references to all kinds of things in this scene, from RoboCop,
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
to the Canadian national anthem.
Oh, Canada!
But I want to talk about how violent Deadpool's fight with Colossus is. So seeing Deadpool tear each part of his body off is the most viscerally disturbing thing I have ever seen in a superhero movie. And I'm including when Dr. Doom just popped everyone's heads in Fantastic Four. And the reason Deadpool does this is not to be intense or gritty. They do it basically just to send a middle finger to the whole superhero movie formula. You don't have to be Disney-fied and family friendly. These are people with ridiculous superpowers doing major damage to their bodies. So why do we have to shy away from it? Let's just go way over the top. Now, I talked about Monty Python bits earlier, and Deadpool destroying his limbs one by one is just like that bit in Holy Grail.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound.
Which the original script actually called out. And it's super gross, but I love it when Deadpool says,
"Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret."
He's referencing a story about a girl getting her first period as blood sprays on Colossus's face. Ugh, that's awesome. But then we get another clever jump cut from this overhead shot of Deadpool laying in the garbage to a parallel shot of Wade rolling into another garbage situation. I also want to point out the broken eggs in the garbage truck. That's a fun visual foreshadowing of Francis's line in the next scene.
You've heard the whole making omelet breaks some eggs bit, right?
Moving on to this Weapon X lab, Ryan Reynolds said that this location is actually a former munitions factory. That makes it a perfect setting for Weapon X, which is a factory that makes human-shaped munitions. Just like this mutant with spikes sticking out of her back, which many of you pointed out is probably Marrow from the X-Men comics. Now, the character of Angel Dust is actually a replacement and a combination of 3 henchmen that were in the original script: Sluggo, Kane, and Wire. Of course, that would have been more expensive, especially with Kane's bionic shape-shifting arms. But really, the writers just wanted to simplify the antagonist of this story. So for that same reason, they made Francis/Ajax the main villain, even though in the comics, he's a subordinate to Dr. Kilbrew. He's the one who gives Deadpool his powers in the comics. And real quick, I want to point out this moment when Wade guesses possible names for Ajax's real name.
What is it really? Kevin? Bruce? Scott? Mitch?
Now, assuming that everything in this movie is an Easter egg, because I'm an insane person, I think those could be Marvel references to Kevin Feige, Bruce Banner, Scott Summers, and S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Mitch Carson, who I know is a bit of a deep cut, but hey, you know, I found a Mitch, so it's gotta be connected, right? And while I'm talking about connections to Marvel characters, check out how the serum that Francis injects Wade with has drops of blood in it. Now, if you watch the post-credit scenes of X-Men Apocalypse, there were those guys from the Essex Corporation, that's Mr. Sinister's company, by the way, picking up a vial containing Wolverine's blood. Now, I wonder if the drops of blood here belong to Wolverine. And this is suggesting that Wolverine's regeneration powers are what gave Deadpool his regeneration powers. Now, Wolverine and Deadpool belong to the same cinematic universe, so those guys could end up being connected in the future. Now, I love the song choice here of the Quartet's Mr. Sandman. The lyrics are all about waking up to the perfect man.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
And that parallels what Wade is going through. He's going under, hoping to wake up as the perfect man, cancer-free for his loved one. So moving on to this scene with Cunningham, and if you read the comics, you recognize this guy as Worm. He's actually a much bigger character in the comics. He's the one who comes up with the name Deadpool. They get it from the death pool he and Wade form in the lab. Now in the comics, Wade and Worm have a very strong connection during their time in the lab, so much so that Ajax tortures Worm just to get back at Wade, and then Wade puts Worm out of his misery by snapping his neck. And of course, the movie doesn't get into any of that backstory, but we do get this meaningful look between Wade and Worm as the lab burns down, and I think that's why. Also, these might have been pretty obvious, but I just loved the throwaway lines that made fun of the other version of Deadpool, where Fox decided to be a good idea to sew the mouth shut of a character whose nickname is Merc with a mouth.
Well, sew your pretty mouth shut.
Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Sorry, Francis. My lips are sealed.
Also, notice that when Wade transforms into his mutant state, he says,
"It's a horror movie."
This is a reference to Frankenstein, which was considered one of the first major novels in the horror genre. And obviously the parallels with Wade becoming a freak of nature who has to walk the earth alone, hating his scientist creator, this is all very Frankenstein. Now the writer said that they aim to break down the runtime of the movie so that 1/3 of the movie is spent with pretty boy Wade before his experiments, 1/3 showing the hideous Wade after his experiments, and then another 1/3 showing Wade behind the mask as Deadpool. And it's impressive that this movie is so precise about the stages of Wade's evolution into Deadpool. Now, before I talked about how in earlier drafts, Francis went to prison. That's how the fight in the fire was supposed to end, with Wade spending the 5 years of Francis's prison sentence becoming Deadpool and building up his skills. However, Simon Kinberg, who's the big-time producer behind all the X-Men movies, he suggested that Francis win this fight and escape. That would make this loss for Wade feel even more like a rock-bottom moment, and make the revenge arc even more satisfying. So that's why when we see Wade crawl out of the burnt rubble, it's a literal phoenix rising from the ashes moment. Now, the only thing I want to point out about this sad scene on the rainy streets is it was originally supposed to lead to a much funnier section of the story, with Wade realizing his power and trying to kill himself over and over, just like that suicide montage in Groundhog Day. Also, check out this shot of Wade walking into the street. It was cut early. A deleted scene shows us how it was supposed to end. Now, obviously this stuff is hilarious, but the writers had the patience to know that for this movie to work, not everything in it can be sold out for a joke. So you probably caught all the Marvel references in this scene with Wade and Weasel coming up with alternate superhero names.
Wade the Wisecracker, or Scaredevil.
Captain Deadpool. No, just
Deadpool, yeah.
But there's a quick missable line in here that seems like a really specific reference to the movie Grosse Point Blank.
Like I'm gonna put a bullet hole in your forehead, I'm gonna the brain hole. Nice talk, sugar mouth.
force him to fix this, then put a bullet in his skull and the brain hole.
Now, one of the things I love about Deadpool is that the humor isn't just meta in a random way. It uses inside references from within the fan culture that the character has inspired. So the best example of this is the use of the Deadpool rap by Team Headkick on YouTube. Those guys wrote the rap in 2013 for the Deadpool video game, and Tim Miller liked it so much, he had them write a new version for the film. Deadpool. That is awesome. So a few things I want to point out during this amazing montage. The set designers filled the background of Wade's apartment with pictures of penises. You can actually see Francis wearing a crown of dicks on his wall. And in the later scene, you can see a rooster, AKA A cock? I love the set designers working all that in. I also noticed how Deadpool at one point says, he's using the feminine form of Francis's name in Spanish. And this section played out differently in other versions of the movie. So for example, in the final cut, this is the first time we meet Blind Al, but in an early draft of the script, she appeared in the very first scene of the movie in a cutaway with her finding the bag of guns that Deadpool accidentally left at home. Also, there's a deleted scene that gave a Christmas theme to this whole montage, with Deadpool counting down the days to Francis's release with an advent calendar. Now this section ends with Deadpool killing the recruiter, and check this out.
Nice to see you, Jared. I'll take a foot long. Fully loaded.
Now this is another pedophile joke referencing former Subway spokesman Jared Fogle, who's now a convicted pedophile. Now this is even more interesting when you consider the timing of this. Deadpool wrapped shooting in May 2015, but the Fogle story didn't break until later that summer. That means they went back to record this line in post-production. So basically, if you thought the humor in Deadpool felt especially sharp or fresh, it's because Ryan Reynolds and the writers went that extra mile to punch up all the jokes. So this fast-forwarding gag was a great meta moment, especially when it stopped on Deadpool jerking off with the stuffed unicorn.
Whoops, you weren't meant to see that.
What's great about this is, just like that opening teabagging moment, this whole movie feels like Deadpool is just screwing with us. Like he recorded the story over his personal sex tape. And the fact that this rebellious Deadpool spirit comes through the editing and the structure of the movie itself is what makes it such a fun experience. So when Deadpool takes us into his apartment with Blind Al, check out this rag that he wraps his stump in. I like how it's already red, meaning that it may have blood from past fights and past limb severings. I also appreciated how Blind Al is listening to Hit the Road Jack by Ray Charles. Ray Charles, of course, is a blind singer. Okay, so let's move on. Francis's plan to cut up Deadpool so much that there's nothing left of him to heal brings up an interesting debate fans have had about Deadpool since the comics came out. How powerful exactly is his regeneration? Would cutting him up even kill him? The comics aren't totally clear on it. Sometimes he can reattach a severed limb. Sometimes he just grows a new limb. He's even grown a new head, I think, before. But I don't think the comics ever want us to think too deeply about the logic of this power. I don't think the movie does either. So let's skip ahead to this scene in the bar with Angel Dust seeing the Polaroid of Wade and Vanessa and saying,
I've seen this girl.
Now, this moment doesn't really elaborate, but that's interesting, right? Like, how would Angel Dust know Vanessa? Of course, Vanessa is a sex worker who works in a strip club, so maybe Angel Dust is into ladies, but my theory is that Angel Dust knows Vanessa from the Weapon X Lab, and Vanessa is going to be revealed as having her copycat powers in a Deadpool sequel. So moving on to this scene in the strip club, where we get the gratuitous cameo promised to us in the opening credits.
Give it up for Chastity!
And you may have caught this, but Weasel's line,
Go get her, Tiger.
is the same final line of Spider-Man 2.
Go get him, Tiger.
Deadpool actually says the same line later in the movie.
Go get her, Tiger.
So obviously another huge laugh in the movie is this moment when Deadpool shows up to the X-Men mansion and says this line.
It's a big house. It's funny that I only ever see two of you. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford another X-Man.
Of course, I don't know how fair that joke is. Like, I don't really want to see Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm in this movie. But what I love about it is that it's true, he does knock on the door of the X-Men mansion and no one else is there to answer the door except one of the teenage students at the school. Now, a lot of people pointed out that the scrapyard vessel where the big climax takes place looks a lot like a SHIELD helicarrier, like one of the ones from the Avengers or Captain America Winter Soldier. And the creators of this movie confirmed that that was the inspiration, but they couldn't call it out directly because, like the raft, those helicarriers are property of the MCU, and Deadpool belongs to a different studio and a different cinematic universe. Moving on, check out this shot with Deadpool, Colossus, and Negasonic walking in slow motion to DMX's X Gonna Give It To You.
X gon' give it to you. Fuck, wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you.
This is another one of those X motifs that I talked about earlier, which makes sense because this team-up moment is the closest Deadpool has gotten to being a true member of the X-Men. I also really like how the lyric stainless steel syncs up with this shot of Colossus.
Stainless steel.
Now, in the old script, this whole showdown was supposed to take place in a tall high-rise, with the team taking out each of the three sub-bosses, Sluggo, Kane, and Wire, on a different floor on their way up to Francis. Kind of like the movies The Raid or Attack the Block, but when the writers simplified the villains into Angel Dust and Francis, they staged this instead in this scrapyard. And actually, I feel like that could be a reference to the awesome gritty fight scene from Superman 3. Now, we're in the third act here, so I'm gonna skip over a lot of the obvious stuff and just kind of point out the things that I found really interesting. So Negasonic is the first X-Men character on film to actually wear the colors that are consistent with the comics in the animated show. Now, that's actually been a long battle between fans of the comics and director Bryan Singer, who prefers to dress up the X-Men in these black leather jumpsuits for whatever reason. Weasel actually called that out earlier in the movie.
You don't want any clothes that are not monochromatic?
But Tim Miller insisted on the blue and yellow colors, and hey, what do you know? It doesn't look so bad. So hopefully those more colorful costumes that we saw at the end of X-Men Apocalypse are here to stay. I also like how Deadpool makes this promise to Francis.
What's my name?
Ooh, I'm a spell it out for you.
And then Deadpool just tears apart everyone, even stopping to teabag this one guy, echoing the moment at the beginning of the movie. And then he literally uses their body parts to spell out Francis. I love that. And if you look closely, you can see that he's pulled down the pants of one of the guys to moon Francis. So great. There's also a quick cameo by Hydra Bob.
Bob?
Wait. So in the comics, Hydra Bob is kind of a recurring sidekick figure to Deadpool, and they call him Bob here because Hydra is, let's say it together, an MCU property. I also like this quick reference to The Dark Knight here, where Francis says,
Wrong choice of words. Very poor choice of words.
Now, at the end of this fight, notice the timing of Colossus's 4 or 5 moment speech.
4 or 5 moments.
I'm sorry?
4 or 5 moments, that's all it takes.
Now there's a reason this works so well. Tim Miller wanted the audience to get a little ahead of the punchline. So notice how the camera cuts away from Colossus to Deadpool and Francis exchanging this look. So right here, we know Colossus is not gonna finish the speech. And I love this, take a look at Colossus's vomit. It's got this silver metallic texture. Tim Miller reasoned that when Colossus changes into his metallic form, the contents of his stomach change into metal too. So we all love this Hugh Jackman face at the end of the movie, and not to over-explain the joke too much, but it's structured perfectly. Deadpool kind of warns Vanessa that he's gonna be ugly, he's a hideous monster.
The guy under this mask, he ain't the same one that you remember.
But then what does Vanessa see when she takes off the mask? The People magazine cover for Sexiest Man Alive. And then when Deadpool says to Colossus,
Tell Beast to stop on my lawn.
That joke was originally supposed to lead to a cutaway with Nicholas Hoult as the Beast taking a dump on Deadpool's front lawn and then running away, but unfortunately they couldn't schedule a time for Hoult to come in and shoot it. Now breaking down the post-credit scene, yes, it's an awesome throwback to one of the first ever post-credit scenes, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, with Deadpool teasing Cable coming in the sequel.
The sequel? We're gonna have Cable.
So Cable is a badass superhero from the X-Men and Deadpool comics. He has this like bionic arm, and his storyline travels through time in so many complicated ways. In fact, his backstory is super complex. He's technically the son of Scott Summers and a version of Jean Grey. It's super insane. I don't know how much of it is gonna make it in the movie, but the Cable and Deadpool team-up series in the comics is amazing. They're kind of the perfect buddy cop duo in the Marvel comics. And we don't know who's gonna be playing Cable yet. Some people are pulling for Ron Perlman or Stephen Lang or maybe Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Robert Liefeld actually mocked up this photo of John Hamm as Cable. And yeah, I think I could get down with Don Draper as Cable. Okay, that is everything I got. And again, I know there are a ton of little references and Easter eggs in this movie that I didn't point out, but at this point, I feel like you guys probably saw a lot of those. So if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to New Rockstars, and then share this video with your friends. You can also support us by becoming a patron on Patreon. To all of our current patrons, thank you so much. You guys are so great, and we actually have some really cool benefits that are coming up for just our patrons coming up soon. So keep an eye out for those, and thank you again for continuing to support us. So if you want more updates on our videos, you can follow us at New Rockstars on Twitter, and you can follow me on Twitter at EA Voss and tweet at me any theories or questions that you had. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.